Hey guys, Angela here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're in a little bit of a different setup. First of all, it's nighttime. I'm in the bed. I'm in pajamas, but I am very committed to this schedule and to just Sunday chats and like having conversations with you. I've even started my skincare. I didn't finish the entire thing. I was like, let me prop this camera up and get Sunday chat popping. I'm even going to edit this tonight and get it up as soon as it's done. But we have to talk about this interview with Tracy Ellis Ross and First Lady Michelle Obama and her brother Craig. So if you don't know, Michelle Obama and her brother Craig have a new podcast called In My Opinion. And I've been listening to it and it's been really great. Like if you're on TikTok, you started to see a lot of clips come out of the podcast. And I'm just really enjoying hearing Michelle Obama's like opinions and take. And I think I've even referenced the podcast in the last Sunday chat where I talked about her saying some of the same shit that I say online and it being more received from her. I don't know, you know, I do know why, right? But you know, that's not what this is about. We're talking about specifically the episode that they did, her and Craig, with Tracy Ellis Ross. And the episode was about dating. First of all, I have to say that I love Tracy Ellis Ross. I don't think that that's a secret. I've talked about her, you know, in ad nauseum, right, online in videos, as somebody that I really do look up to, and I just appreciate the way that she talks about womanhood and aging, and I very much see myself in her. It's a representation of what life can be for me if it continues to move the way that it's moving. Like I know that I'm going to be okay, and we'll get there. So anyway, I love Tracy Ellis Ross. So anytime that she is talking specifically about her life and where she is in life and relationship and, you know, her own relationship to herself, I'm always tuned in, because like I said, to me, it is a reflection of who I am and, you know, where I'm going. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I enjoyed the conversation that was happening on the podcast even before they introduced Tracy, because First Lady Michelle Obama and her brother talked a little bit about dating themselves before they brought Tracy in. They were talking about like their experience with dating, more about like Craig's experience with dating, but they got to talking about like his relationship with his current wife when it first started. And I liked that, at least my interpretation of what was being said, is that the way that he explained the intentionality behind how he and his wife approached dating each other is like my version of intentionality, right? And so not to say that anybody's way of like approaching dating is wrong, but like I feel like when people are like, oh, I'm dating with intention, they mean everybody that I'm dating has to want to be my husband or fall in love with me, or, you know, it has to be this certain way or nothing. And I don't necessarily think that's dating intentionally at all. But what Craig was saying is that when he and his now wife, his current wife, were dating and they realized that they really liked each other and they were trying to like decide whether they were gonna like take this to the next step or not, they sat down and they had a conversation. They both like wrote out lists of things that they both need, want, and how they want to feel and exist in a relationship together, and decided in that moment if they were able to provide that for each other. For me, that's dating intentionally, thinking about if we want to exist in the same way, if we want to do life together. And you don't do that with everybody that you meet, right? You don't do that with everybody that you meet. Everybody isn't meant to be dated that seriously, just in my opinion. Anyway, I really enjoyed that part of the conversation, but then they brought Tracy out and I just was like, oh my God, I literally have been talking about this interview all week. Like I talked about it on my Instagram. As soon as I listened to it, like the next morning, I like posted a clip for my Instagram. I talked about it on TikTok. I think I made a couple of videos on TikTok about it. And as always, I just really appreciated Tracy's candidness and her openness to talk about where she is relationally. And it can't always be easy, but she shows up and she talks about it anyway. Like, even now there is conversation or like pushback on something that she said in the interview around grief. She was talking about times where she has had to hold grief around the fact that she doesn't have children, she isn't married, and that's something that she very much wants, and grieving the fact that that hasn't happened, or it may not ever happen. So having to hold that grief while also still becoming the like embodied full person that she is and creating the beautiful life that she has, she had to hold that grief and do that at the same time, right? She had to allow herself space to like grieve that. Like, I get to be sad over that, but also I am still going to build this wonderful, beautiful life for myself. And there are people online that's like, oh, that's not grief, that's not grief. I'm like, how is that not grief? How is that not grief? That's no different than y'all being online complaining about how, you know, college was a waste of your money because you did all this stuff and you were supposed to get this and you didn't get this. How is that different? You made a plan for your life. It did not come to fruition in the way that you wanted it to or at all. And you feel a certain way about that. That is grief, honey. Grief is not just relegated to somebody dying and then you're sad about it, or you being in a breakup and then you're sad about it, right? You can grieve things like a dream deferred, right? A career, not having children, not being able to have children, not meeting the right person to have children with. That is absolutely grief. And people are so insensitive. So I always appreciate the fact that Tracy still shows up and talks about her singleness and her life in the way that she does, even though people are always committed to misunderstanding what women like Tracy say. And I know, because I'm a woman like Tracy, what women say when they say, I want to be in a relationship, I would love to be coupled, I would love to do life with someone, however, I don't want to do it so bad that I would just settle for anything. I am extremely happy. I'm happy with my life. I have figured out what makes me happy, and I have given myself that. I have figured out how I want to exist and what I need and what it takes to make me happy and fulfilled and feel full. And I do that every single day. And if you're not adding to that, you're subtracting from it, or at least, you know, you're pillaging off of it. You're taking away from it without feeding back into it. And I don't need that, right? And that's not me saying I don't need a man. I'm saying I don't need a man that bad. Like, I don't need one that bad. You're not gonna come in here and fuck up my equilibrium, you know, fuck up my routine, you know, fuck up my nervous system. Like, you're just not gonna do it for the sake of like having somebody to sleep next to at night. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not that important to me. And then going back to the grief thing, Tracy had said something about being a, you know, choiced woman. And I was telling my friend, I was like, you know, it's crazy. Like, I don't think that people understand, like, she isn't, as it relates to like children and a husband, she isn't a choiced woman. She isn't a choiced woman by way of like, I chose to not have children, I chose to not be married. She didn't choose to not have children. It just hasn't come to fruition, you know, or it may never, right? She didn't choose to not be married. And so being a choice woman that didn't choose the life necessarily, like, you had a different dream for how you would exist, but then being able to pivot and create this beautiful life, right, that you exist in anyway. I don't think people realize how much work that takes, right? How much self-work that takes, how much work it takes to exist outside of societal norms and have people question whether you are really happy, or, you know, if, you know, you really are choosing, or is it that you can't make it happen. I know for me, I choose to not be a parent, right? It's not one of those things where, you know, it just didn't happen for me. I'm so grateful that it didn't happen for me, because I only ever wanted to be a parent because I felt like, or a mother, because I felt like that was a part of womanhood, that was a part of success, and I needed that to complete me, to complete, you know, my success story. And I am so grateful every day that I came to the realization and the choice that that is not something that I want for myself. And it's not always easy being a choiced person in that way, being a person that makes that choice and then saying that out loud, because there is always going to be people, like I said, that is committed to misunderstanding what you're saying. I'm saying I'm choosing this, and you saying, oh yeah, right, you just can't. I could go have a baby tomorrow if I want to. It's not that hard to give you a baby. It's not that difficult. I just feel like Tracy is in a league of her own as it relates to having these type of like honest conversations. Even I remember her having a conversation with Michelle Obama and Oprah before about, you know, not Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris. And they were talking about being childrenless women and legacy, and what that, you know, are you able to have a legacy without having children? And I remember that conversation and being so touched by that conversation, and hearing Kamala and Oprah and Tracy, three phenomenal women who absolutely have legacy, right? But they are motherless women with the legacy, and hearing them talk about that and what that looks like, and them all being, you know, a decade, Oprah, what, 2 decades older than I am. Like, I need to see that. And I am so happy that women are starting to open up more and have these conversations. Even women that are married and that have children, that are saying yes, like Michelle. That's what I really like about Michelle and Craig's podcast, is that even though Michelle is married and she has children, she talks a lot about, like, yeah, there's A and B, but there's also like this middle area. You don't have to either be married with children or an old cat lady. There is this whole middle part where you could be self-actualized and self-realized, and it doesn't have to include either A or B. Either end of those two spectrums that have always been like put in front of you. There are women like Kamala, there are women like Oprah, there are women like Tracy that exist in the margins of marriage and motherhood and old cat lady, and you can be you can be those things. And so it was just a really inspirational and like aspirational episode, and I implore you, if you haven't already, to go listen to it. I think it's like 40 minutes. It's not even that long, but I promise you, you won't regret it. On a less serious note, so Tracy was talking about dating, and she was like, you know, I date. You know, same girl, I date, but like nothing serious has come out of any of the dating that I do. But something that she said, like, you know, I don't change my mind often. I'm very, like, the scores are the scores, the rules are the rules. But she was talking about dating, and she was talking about how she finds herself dating younger, like more often than not, because she finds that men her age are really stuck in their ways of thinking, very patriarchal, I can't say it. You know what I'm trying to say. You know, their mind is still wrapped up in the patriarchy. You know, she was like, you know, you might find yourself on the other end of, on the opposite end of a table at dinner with a man my age, and he, you know, use a homophobic slur, or, you know, something like that. And you like, what the fuck, right? So like, she has found herself dating younger men because she was saying how she finds that they are more progressive in thought, progressive in politics. You know, they understand sexuality, and you know, you are less likely to have to correct them on like rhetoric, and you know, they are less beholden to old like patriarchal ways of how you exist in relationships. You know, they are okay with being in the background, with, you know, maybe not being the breadwinner, right? They're okay to non-traditional dynamics in like relationships. So she has found it a lot easier to date younger men. And not to say that they're not without fault. I honestly think that Gen Z is really scary, men and women, as it relates to like dating and their thought process, their value systems. I find that they are moving backwards. They're becoming a lot more conservative, a lot more traditional. You know, they're gonna fuck around and have themselves back to the point where women can't even get a bank account on their own if they don't watch out, right? That's what I mean by like scary. I wouldn't go that young anyway. I would never date anybody that young. I don't foresee myself dating anybody under 36, maybe 35 on a good day. I say all of that to say I never thought about dating young men in that way. I've always been very vehemently against dating younger because I am a woman that does not want to have children, and I find that a lot of younger men may still have that dream, want, or desire to like be a father, and it's not happening. Not to say that men my age or even older don't still, you know, want to have children, especially if they haven't already. I'm just saying it's more likely that a 35-year-old man still wants to be a father over a 45-year-old man. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so in the back of my mind, I'm always like, oh, well, you know, they may still want to have children. They may still be in like a building phase of their career, or still very like career driven. And y'all know me, I didn't descale the corporate ladder altogether. Like, you know, I'm trying to just like, you know, take it easy and chill and travel and all that type of stuff. And, you know, young people get to be like tenacious and like, you know, grind and all that type of stuff. And I'm not trying to like, you know, hinder a young person's need to like go hard at what they're trying to do. So I always just assume that even me at 41 and a 35-year-old would be in different places in life. Right, but that's an assumption. I've never really even given it a try. So I was like, maybe, you know, I'll open myself up to dating a little younger. No more than like 5 years. I can't date I posted it on my TikTok, and some people was like, yeah, my husband is 10 years younger than me. Baby, I'm not dating no 30-year-old man. I'm not dating no 31-year-old man. I remember being 30. I remember being 31. No. There was a big difference between Angela at 31 and 35. That's why I was like, oh, you know, 35, 36. You know, is more like it, where I was really like catching my second wind of adulthood. 31, I'm not dating no 30-year-old man. It's not happening. But I am open to like maybe seeing what that's about. I do find that men my age, I do more often than not end up being like, no, you're blocked or you're done, because of something ignorant that they've said, or, you know, some like limited way of thinking or something like that. But I've also met men my age that aren't like that. Like, you know, I've also met men my age that are progressive in thinking, and I'm talking everything, politically, you know, socially, relationally, all of that. But like I said, more often than not, I'm like, you gotta go. You gotta go. So if Tracy can do it, I can do it, right? I can be a little less rigid in dating as it relates to age. Like I said, I posted it on TikTok, and I had so many people like, oh, I date younger, I only date younger. I don't know about that. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna only date younger, because I like an older man. I like a more seasoned man. Like, I tend to be more attracted to more seasoned men, 45, 48, like around that age. So, you know, Savannah, slow down. I cannot commit to strictly dating younger men. No, but I will be open to it. Like, if I were approached by a younger man that I was interested in and intrigued by, Angela, before listening to that podcast, would have been like, baby, you too young for me. The man could be 38. I'd be like, baby, you too young for me. I'm only 41. That's 3 years though. Baby, I was already walking and talking, and you were just plopped out the vagina. So, like, you know, I was getting ready to go to pre-K, and, you know, you were still goo goo gaga. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I had to talk about that. I loved that interview. I don't think that I am doing it as much justice as it deserves. And if you have not watched it, I implore you to go watch it. It was such a great interview, and I'm hoping to hear more women having conversations like that. I know that that's how I am attempting to show up online. You know, I was talking on my TikTok this week as well about how I wanted to show up, you know, in a very easy way online. I wanted to show y'all my outfits. I wanted to, you know, do lifestyle content. And I still do that, and I'll still continue to do that. But I wanted that to be my content. And I kept hearing guys say to me, that ain't, you know, that's cute, but like, that's not your assignment. I actually was watching a interview with Oprah like a couple years ago. I can't remember what she was on. It was like one of her Super Soul Sundays, I think, actually. And she had said something, and it really just, it like in that moment, it struck me. I'm a person that really believes that God meets you where you are, right? He meets you where you, God is all around us. And at that time, I just was like, well, you know, what is my purpose? Like, you know, what am I supposed to be doing outside of like work, right? And I was looking at something that Oprah was like, you know, I always knew that my personality was my purpose. So my personality was my purpose, right? Like the things that I have to say, you know, my point of view, my take, like that is my purpose. I always knew that. And, you know, I'm Oprah Winfrey, so obviously it was right. And I was like, that's it. My personality is my purpose. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with that. And at that point, I was already like posting on TikTok, but I was doing mostly like, you know, fashion videos and stuff like that. And I was finding success slowly. And every once in a while, I would sprinkle in, you know, a little bit of, you know, conversational content, just like talking about life and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I started to notice that that content, like while people were there for the outfits and stuff, like that content is really what was like drawing people in. That was what was getting the engagement. That was what I was getting people, you know, sending me DMs about. And then that clip came back into my ethos again. And I said, okay, God, like, all right, I hear you. And so then I started more and more to just talk about, you know, my life's experiences, things that I've learned at my age, you know, thoughts, opinions that I have about dating or life or career, or, you know, even if it's just a trending topic, like trying to relate it back to some sort of like experience and outcome from that experience that I've had, right? Not as advice. I always tell y'all, nothing that I say is advice. It is me sharing my experience and the outcomes of it. You can use it to inform decisions, inform how you move, to set expectations of a possible outcome, but it is not advice. Everything that I say and everything that everybody else say on the internet about most things is anecdotal. It's based on our experiences. But I do believe that my purpose is to be in that middle, right? To bring it back to the podcast, to be in that middle. I'm not here. I don't have a family. I'm not gonna have children. I'm not married. I'm not an old ass cat lady. I'm in that middle. I'm sitting right in there with Tracy and Kamala and Oprah, and I'm living a great life. And no, I'm not a vice president, or I'm not a billionaire, or I'm not a beautiful actress, but I still sit in that middle, right? It looks many different ways, and I just want to continue to show up online in that way. And it's been hard because I don't really like to be perceived, if I'm being quite honest. I know that's hard to believe because I'm showing up online every day, but I don't, right? I'm not an introvert. I'm an extrovert, actually. I am very sociable by nature, but I am also very, not secretive, but I would say like private. And so while this is naturally who I am, it's still like bucking against who I am. If that makes sense. So anyway, highly suggest, if you haven't already, to make sure that you watch the podcast. It was a great podcast. I'm gonna wrap it up. It's 9:50. It's 9:50. Thank y'all so much. Hopefully this is it makes sense. Hopefully you picking up something that I'm putting down. As always, let's discuss in the comments. I'm gonna get better about responding sooner. I feel like I'd be so behind with my responses to comments, but I thank y'all for engaging and commenting and liking and all of that stuff. Anyway, I'll get better on my end. Thank y'all so much for watching. Thank y'all so much for watching. Y'all stay blessed. Y'all stay blessed. And I will talk to y'all in the next video. Bye.